You've heard the name, right? Alexander the Great. But for this explainer, we're going to look past the whole military genius thing for a second. This guy was more than a conqueror. He was a catalyst. He basically hit the fast-forward button on history. And believe it or not, we're still feeling the ripples today.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does one guy, in just 32 years, that's it, 32 years, completely reshape the world forever? How is that even possible? Well, to get to the answer, you've got to go right back to the beginning. His upbringing wasn't just any upbringing. It was like he was being custom built for greatness.
Yeah, he wasn't just born Alexander the Great. He was forged into it. When you look at his upbringing, it honestly feels less like a random series of events and more like he was being engineered for one thing: conquest. Just imagine this for a second. You've got two incredibly powerful and very different forces shaping you. On one side, you have your dad, King Philip II. This guy is a stone-cold military genius who's teaching you strategy, tactics, discipline, the nuts and bolts of war. Then, on the other side, you have your mom, Olympias, who's whispering in your ear that you're not just a prince, you're basically a demigod destined for greatness. You mix that hardcore, practical military mind with that fiery, unstoppable ambition. Yeah, you get Alexander. And if that wasn't enough, just for good measure, let's throw in one of the greatest thinkers in all of human history as his personal tutor. We're talking about Aristotle. So Aristotle wasn't just drilling him on how to win battles. No, he was opening Alexander's mind to philosophy, to science, to a genuine respect for different cultures. He gave Alexander the why behind the conquest, the big ideas that would become the blueprint for his empire. Okay, so you've got this perfectly crafted prince, armed with military skill and philosophical ambition. He's not going to sit around and wait, right? When his father is suddenly assassinated, the world is about to get a very, very rude awakening about just how fast this kid can move. Get this, he's just 20 years old. 20! His dad is killed, he's now king, and immediately rebellions start popping up all over Greece, testing him. Big mistake. He crushes them with a speed and a brutality that is just shocking. Almost overnight, everyone gets the message. And just like that, the path is clear to launch the one campaign his father had spent his life planning, the invasion of Persia. Seriously, the speed at which this all happens is just mind-blowing. Take a look at this timeline. We're talking about a single decade, 10 years. In that time, he marches out of Greece, completely takes apart the Persian Empire, which was the global superpower back then, and doesn't stop until his army is literally at the borders of India. It's relentless. The pace is just insane. And by the time he hits 30, he's not just a king anymore. He is the ruler of one of the biggest empires the world had ever seen. But here's the thing. Conquering all that land, that was really only part one of the plan. And this, right here, is where things get really interesting. This is where we see what Alexander was really all about. See, it wasn't just about taking over territory. He had a much bigger, much crazier idea. He wanted to connect all these different peoples and create something brand new, a kind of global culture. And this new culture he's building gets a name: Hellenistic culture. And the idea was actually pretty radical. He wasn't trying to just stomp out local traditions and make everyone Greek. No, the plan was to blend them, to mix Greek ideas, the Greek language, Greek art, with the cultures of Egypt, Persia, and all the way to Asia. You could say it was one of history's first major experiments in globalization. And the impact was huge. All of a sudden, the Greek language becomes the English of the ancient world. It's the language everyone uses for business, for science, for anything important. He founded new cities, like Alexandria, that were designed from the ground up to be these incredible melting pots of culture and knowledge. This cultural fusion created a common ground, a shared foundation that connected millions of people and would stick around for hundreds of years. And if you need one perfect symbol for this whole vision, look no further than the Library of Alexandria. We're not just talking about a big building with a bunch of scrolls. This was the center of knowledge for the entire ancient world. It was like a magnet, pulling in the smartest people from everywhere to study and debate. It was Alexander's grand idea made real. So he's in Babylon, already planning his next massive campaigns, and then it all just stops? The story takes this incredibly sharp final turn. The man who seemed literally invincible, well, it turns out he was mortal after all. 32, that's how old he is when he dies, suddenly, in Babylon.
And to this day, we're still not totally sure why. Was it a sickness? Was he poisoned? Historians still argue about it, but his death, it did a lot more than just end one man's life. It created this enormous power vacuum, and his entire empire was about to be ripped to shreds. You see, without him, the one guy holding it all together, the whole thing just fell apart, almost instantly. His top generals, the guys who'd been with him through everything, they were all tough, ambitious men. So what did they do? They turned on each other, each trying to grab a piece of the pie. The empire was carved up into a bunch of separate, warring kingdoms. So from a political standpoint, his grand vision of a united world, it was a complete and immediate failure. But, and this is the really wild part, while the political empire crumbled, the idea he planted, that Hellenistic culture, it didn't just survive, it thrived. It became the foundation for the Roman Empire that followed. Early Christianity spread like wildfire partly because the New Testament was written in common Greek, and later on, Islamic scholars in the Golden Age would preserve and build upon all that Greek knowledge. So the culture he created ended up being way more powerful and long-lasting than the empire itself. Okay, so what does any of this have to do with us right now? Well, a lot more than you might think. The echoes of what Alexander did are still bouncing around today. In fact, they're kind of baked into the structure of our modern world. Let's draw a straight line. Back then, Alexander pushed Greek as this international language for trade and big ideas. Sound familiar? It's basically the same role English plays today as the global language of business and diplomacy. He set the precedent. How about that idea of a central place for learning and innovation? The Library of Alexandria. Well, that's the great-great-grandfather of our modern research universities. The whole concept of bringing the world's knowledge to one place to study and build on it, that starts there. His influence is just everywhere when you start looking. That classic image of the bold, visionary leader who changes the world, yep, that's the Alexander archetype. The whole idea of globalization, of connecting the world through culture, he was an early pioneer of that. His military tactics, they're still studied today at places like West Point. At the end of the day, he totally changed our definition of what's possible, of what human ambition can achieve. So you see, calling him Alexander the Conqueror kind of misses the point. He was more like a force of nature, a historical catalyst. He put his foot on the gas pedal of history and accelerated everything: cultural exchange, scientific discovery, global connection. It was like he packed centuries of normal, gradual change into one wild, explosive decade. And all of this leaves us with a huge question, one that's just as relevant now as it was back then. His ambition created this incredible connected world, but it was a world built on the back of brutal, bloody conquest. So what's the true legacy of an ambition that huge? Is it the creation? Or is it the destruction it takes to get there? Something to think about.